Hi there, friends. I had to take a little bit of a break for some life stuff. I was moving into this place, which you might get the feeling is still pretty bare. So this will be fun. It'll track the progress of that as we continue with the advent of divine justice. I just had to get back into it because the world needs the advent of divine justice. And I don't know if you know, because I certainly didn't know, that the phrase, the advent of divine justice, actually comes from the Bab. I was reading this simple little book, Prayers from the Bab. I'm very much falling in love with them. And there's this beautiful paragraph that I want to start this session with from the Bab. Assuredly, we are today living in the days of God. These are the glorious days, on the like of which the sun hath never risen in the past. These are the days which the people in bygone times eagerly expected. What hath befallen you that ye are fast asleep? These are the days wherein God hath caused the day star of truth to shine resplendent. What hath caused you to keep your silence? These are the appointed days which ye have yearningly awaited in the past, the days of the advent of divine justice. Alrighty. So today, in the advent of divine justice, letter by Shoghi Effendi, I am starting in on paragraph 18. Such a matchless and brilliant record of service, extending over a period of well nigh 20 years, and so closely interwoven with the interest and fortunes of such a large section of the worldwide Baha'i community, deserves to rank as a memorable chapter in the history of the formative period of the faith of Baha'u'llah. Reinforced and enriched as it is by the memory of the American believers' early achievements, such a record is in itself convincing testimony to their ability to befittingly shoulder the responsibilities which any task may impose upon them in the future. To overrate the significance of these manifold services would be well nigh impossible. To appraise correctly their value and dilate, D-I-L-A-T-E, on their merits and immediate consequences is a task which only future Baha'i historian can properly discharge. I can only for the present place on record my profound conviction that a community capable of showing forth such deeds, of evincing such a spirit, of rising to such heights, cannot but be already possessed of such potentialities as will enable it to vindicate in the fullness of time its right to be acclaimed as the chief creator and champion of the world order of Baha'u'llah. Magnificent as has been this record, reminiscent as it is in some of its aspects of the exploits with which the dawnbreakers of an heroic age have proclaimed the birth of the faith itself, the task associated with the name of this privileged community is, far from approaching its climax, only beginning to unfold. What the American believers have within the space of almost 50 years achieved is infinitesimal when compared to the magnitude of the tasks ahead of them. The rumblings of that catastrophic upheaval, which is to proclaim at one and the same time the death pangs of the old order and the birth pangs of the new indicate both the steady approach as well as the awe-inspiring character of those tasks. I just gotta stop right there. Like, Shoghi Effendi's words are chosen so meticulously. And, you know, if the shaking in the world and society feels intense and grows in intensity, of course, it's the, what word does he use? Well, just that it's happening at the same time. It's the coming together of the death pangs and the birth pangs. The death of the old and the birth of the new, but both of those experiences, like that's really intense imagery and language. Going on to paragraph 20. The virtual establishment of the administrative order of their faith, the erection of its framework, the fashioning of its instruments, and the consolidation of its subsidiary institutions was the first task committed to their charge as an organized community called into being by the will and under the instructions of Abdu'l-Baha. Of this initial task, they have acquitted themselves with marvelous promptitude, fidelity, and vigor. No sooner had they created and correlated the various and necessary agencies for the efficient conduct of any policy they might subsequently wish to initiate, than they addressed themselves with equal zest and consecration to the next more arduous task of erecting the superstructure of an edifice, the cornerstone of which Abdu'l-Baha himself had laid. And when that feat was achieved, this community, alive to the passionate pleas, exhortations, and promises recorded in the tablets of the divine plan, resolved to undertake yet another task, which in its scope and spiritual potentialities is sure to outshine any of the works they have already accomplished, launching with unquenchable enthusiasm and dauntless courage the 7-year plan as the first and practical steps toward the fulfillment of the mission prescribed in those epoch-making tablets. They entered with a spirit of renewed consecration upon their dual task, the consummation of which it is hoped will synchronize with the celebration of the centenary of the birth of the faith of Baha'u'llah. Well aware that every advance made in the external ornamentation of their majestic edifice would directly react on the progress of the teaching campaign initiated by them in both the northern and southern American continents, and realizing that every victory gained in the teaching field would, in its turn, facilitate the work and hasten the completion of their temple, they are now pressing on with courage and faith in their efforts to discharge, in both of its phases, the obligations under the plan they have dedicated themselves to execute. Let them not, however, imagine that the carrying out of the 7-year plan, coinciding as it does with the termination of the first century of the Baha'i era, signifies either the termination of or even an interruption in the work which the unerring hand of the Almighty is directing them to perform. The opening of the 2nd century of the Baha'i era must needs disclose greater vistas, usher in further stages, and witness the initiation of plans more far-reaching than any as yet conceived. The plan on which is now focused the attention, the aspirations, and the resources of the entire community of the American believers should be viewed as a mere beginning, as a trial of strength, a stepping stone to a crusade of still greater magnitude, if the duties and responsibilities which with the author of the divine plan has invested them are to be honorably and entirely fulfilled. Paragraph 22. For the consummation of the present plan can result in no more than the formation of at least one center in each of the republics of the Western Hemisphere, whereas the duties prescribed in those tablets call for a wider diffusion and imply the scattering of a far greater and more representative number of the members of the North American Baha'i community over the entire surface of the New World. It is the undoubted mission of the American believers, therefore, to carry forward into the 2nd century the glorious work initiated in the closing years of the 1st. Not until they have played their part in guiding the activities of these isolated and newly fledged centers, and in fostering their capacity to initiate in their turn institutions, both local and national, modeled on their own, can they be satisfied to have adequately discharged their immediate obligations under Abdu'l-Baha's divinely revealed plan. That concludes paragraph 22.